I'm Tarcisio. I'm from the Swiss Institute of Bioinformatics. I'm here today to talk about our work federating and queuing heterogeneous and distributed web APIs and triple stores. This work was done in collaboration with the BASF company. It's a lead company in the crop protection industry. First, I would like to start with a motivation example. This question was done by a BASF researcher that was studying the ONT2 gene in wheat and wanted to know the protein-protein interaction of its autologs in rice. To answer this kind of complex biological question, we often need to combine the scattered data at BASF and also watching on the web. For example, here, we could think about to get the information about the protein-protein interaction from the string database, a public database. And for the ontology data, we could think about the OMA database for having the ontology information. Then by doing that, we can derive new insights from this web of biological data that is at BASF and also available on the web. But also before, I would like to mention how is the current situation at BASF. The data there is quite fragmented and the access modes are heterogeneous. Data has different heterogeneities in different levels, at the syntactical level and also at semantical level. In this work, we focus on the integration and interoperability of web APIs with the native RDF store that can be accessed through query language such as Sparkle. For the web APIs, why we are more interested also in interpreting these web APIs is because they not necessarily only provide access to the raw data, but often to the processed data. That it will be difficult to have this information if you aim it to integrate it at the raw data level, the data source level. Then it's more interesting to interpret the API because you have access to the processed data. That at the end of the day, it's also something that has more interest for the end user. Then what we do to achieve data integration interoperability at BASF. We do that integration actually on the fly. It's a kind of a seamless data integration that data is retrieved directly from the original sources via the web APIs, since we focus on the web APIs. Then they are combined using virtual knowledge graph during the query execution time. Essentially, these web APIs are exposed as a knowledge graph virtually that they can then be queryable with structured query language for RDF, in this case, the Sparkle query language. And it means that we homogenize the way that the data is accessed and also syntactically how it's represented. And by using ontologies, as I will show afterwards, we also address some semantic interoperability heterogeneous issues, actually. The federated data integration architecture that we developed, essentially, we have this application layer that can be a keyword search engine, such as BioSoda, that can be built over the integrated data sources. The integration indeed happens through the structured query interface layer that contains the different Sparkle endpoints of the different sources. It's here that the way that you access the data is homogenized, and also where the data is combined at query execution time. For example, in the last layer is the data store layer that, for example, we have here the OMA RDF store. It's a native RDF store that has a Sparkle endpoint associated to it to access the data, and this is represented using the ontology from the Quest for Ontologies consortium. The string database, I will talk a little bit more in details in a few. And also we have other data store that were integrated, such as the SEC repo. It's a repository that contains metadata about sequences. That's also providing web APIs, and we are applying the same method that we apply for StringDB, but for the SEC repo. If I give a zoom in the StringDB case, essentially for each web API developed over the string database, they have, for example, a function called functional interaction network. We then make the results that's retrieved by calling this function as a virtual knowledge graph. It's represented using the ontology that we developed for structuring the protein-protein interaction knowledge from the string database specifically, but it can further be is extended and adapted to other protein-protein databases. And essentially for each web API function, we're going to have a corresponding Sparkle endpoint, in this case for the functional interaction API, we're going to have this endpoint. And for the physical interaction as well, we're going to have another one. Then we use these technologies here to implement our approach. Here you can see it's publicly available, the specification of the protein-protein ontology that we developed for the string database. Then essentially, if I come back to the question that you have in the beginning of the presentation, the answer of these questions is illustrated here, where we have the ortholog, the OMT2 genes, the COMT gene, its functional product, the protein, interacts with other 10 proteins according to the string database. Then I will focus on this question. This is the question 8 of our evaluation. We can see that the mean time for retrieving the results was around 1 second for retrieving 10 results. For further evaluation information, you can visit this website. That is a persistent URL. As to conclude this work, actually, we built a semantically enriched abstract layer by using the virtual knowledge graph on top of the web API functions, and by doing that, we provide access to the physical layer, the original data sources. We federated these different data sources by also showing a prototype that interoperates the web API with the native RDF stores. In our example, between OMA and the string database. This is the GitHub of approach, and thank you for your attention.